Okay, so we are in the process of designing the single triangle that will get repeated for our radial balance square. There are a couple of rules of thumb, so you want to limit the number of shapes that you have to somewhere between 6 and 10. So if you look here, you'll see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so that's just perfect. I've drawn it lightly so that I can get it to how I want it to look before I commit to it and leave dark marks that I can't erase. In my case, I've drawn something that's basically symmetrical. You do not have to do that, but you do want to use the space well, fill the space with shapes, have them kind of play around each other, have some sort of relationship with each other, as opposed to just random shapes thrown on the paper like confetti. You want to make sure you leave space around them, and you leave space around the triangle as well. So everything's sort of floating in its own space without overlapping, running into another shape, or running off the edge. You can have shapes within shapes, however, so it might look as though their shapes are stacked, or even that there's openings within the shapes, and all of that is okay. So once I have come to a design I'm pretty happy with, I'm going to use a single line of just a wooden pencil, just a 2B pencil, and I'm not going back and forth, just one single line, but I'm applying a decent amount of pressure. And as I do it, as I make my lines, I'm really careful not to drag my hand through the line that I'm making, because what happens is we actually want to make sure we don't knock any of the graphite off the page, that loose graphite that's just going to kind of sit on the page. That's stuff that you sometimes get to collect along the side of your hand when you drag your hand through your drawings or your writings. Sometimes your hand gets dirty. That's graphite. We don't want to move any of it because we need it to accomplish our next step. So I'm just going over one dark heavy line. I'm not going back and forth, back and forth. I don't want a thick line, but I want a dense line. So, and I'm kind of working from one side to the other, or you can work from the inside out, essentially just making sure you're not dragging your hand through those marks. Okay, now I've actually have previously completed some of these. I've done some of these have repeated already, and I'm down to just these last two. So each time I trace a shape, I'm going to go over it dark and heavy like I just did this one right here, and then I'm going to use that one to transfer to my next triangle. So in that case, I want to fold it face down. So again, that loose graphite will want to lay on this blank triangle. So I'm going to do what's called a, what I call a taco fold, and fold it face down onto the one next to it. Now this is the area that I'm working. This is the area where I'm going to need to apply some pressure. So I'm using the end of my Sharpie. I'm using my non-dominant hand, my left hand, in this case, to hold that paper flat. I don't want it to get crinkled or bent or torn. So I have to be especially careful along the corners here. It's really easy to accidentally bend that back, go off the edge, and then cause it to crease or fold or tear. And then this takes a pretty good amount of pressure. And then when I'm done, I open it up and I'll see just a nice light, kind of a ghost-like image left behind. And that's the one that I'm going to then trace again with a single line, just a dark heavy line going around those, all those, careful not to drag my hand through it. And when that one is finished being traced, then I'm going to rotate it, and I want to flip that one down to the one next to it. So then I would do the hamburger fold or hot dog fold, so that that one's going to be face down there. But I first have to go over all those lines, nice and dark and heavy, get some of that graphite built up on the page, and then again. So as you're doing this, each time you do a triangle, you're going to be rotating around and doing alternating hot dog and taco folds until you have every triangle filled. And then it will eventually get to where we're going.